yes, sustainability is using green materials and having low water use. But in a way, none of that matters if people who are going to use that space don't enjoy it. They might need to like tear it out in 5 years because it's not functioning properly, or nobody's caring for it because it hasn't touched something in someone. So sustainable projects are projects that people love.
Hello, friends. I'm Julia Barry from Uproot Design Studio. I'm calling in from the land of the Muncie Lenape people here in Brooklyn, New York, and I am so happy to be chatting today with Meredith Entrop, a landscape architect with a deep knowledge of sustainable practices. Meredith is the owner of Range Creative and has led many residential projects like the Unicus Five. Is that how you say that?
Yeah.
Okay, while at Shademaker Studio in Austin, Texas. Other notable projects include the Headwaters Conservation Center and Hotel Magdalena with 10 Ike Landscape Architects in Austin, and the 550 Madison Avenue and Ford Central Campus building with Snowhetta in New York. So, Meredith, I'm so excited to talk to you today. I love how you pull together storytelling, sketching, all your different talents with topographic design, and you create spaces that connect people to the outdoors, which, as you know, is some of my favorite stuff. So, I can't wait to jump in. Can you tell us your pronouns and anything else you would like to add to the intro?
Oh gosh. Yeah, well, my pronouns are she, her, and I think that that was a great introduction. I'm just really excited to be here and to chat with you today.
Yeah, me too. Um, so I wanted to share how we met because it's just one of my favorite stories. Um, we were both uh at what airport was it? JFK or LaGuardia? I can't remember.
I think it might have been JFK. I think it was JFK.
Yeah. So we were at the airport waiting to get our bags, and I don't even remember if we had been on the same flight. Like we were just randomly there,
No, I think
and
we were because you had just
we
come
were.
to Austin. You had
Oh,
just
yes, yes,
visited
yes.
Austin, and I
That's
was
right.
visiting Austin. Yeah.
That's right. So, Meredith has a very cute rescue dog named Louie. And we just like really wanted to pet Louie and talk to Meredith. And I just had this feeling like I need to connect with this person. And I did something that I've never done before. and, and I gave you my phone number under the pretense of dog sitting, but secretly I was like, I need to know more about Meredith. She seems really cool. And that's where we got started. And I've so loved learning about everything that you're doing and all the stuff that you care about. And I can't wait to share it with everybody. I don't know, if you have any other details to add from the airport story that you
Oh,
remember that I don't, but
well, I remember, I mean, that is spot on how the exchange happened. And then I also remember there being like, oh, well, we could trade plant sitting for dog sitting. And
right.
I loved becoming both your friend and your plant sitter from time to time while we were both in New York.
Yes.
Yeah,
The plants
that
are still going strong thanks to
I
your
love
efforts. And now
it.
we also have a rescue dog. I think you inspired us.
Oh, yes.
Yes,
Oh,
animals and plants bringing people together.
it's in
Even
our bones.
even the mean New Yorkers at JFK.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we're not so mean after all. Um, all right, well, let's dive in. I would love to just start with, can you describe just, in everyday language, what landscape architecture actually is? I think, the first time you were talking to me about it, I was like, I didn't even know this was a job. I had never heard that phrase. So give us a lowdown.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I think that that is kind of everyone's experience when I graduated from UT out of the landscape architecture program. a classmate of mine made koozies with lawnmowers on it as a joke because everyone was like, wait, you have to go to graduate school for a landscape? Like, we don't get it. Yeah, so well, where do I want to start? Yeah, the name is not really doing us a service in clarifying what it is that we do, but the built environment has buildings and then kind of everything else. Streets, roads, parks, open spaces, gardens, yards, parking lots. And the way I think is simplest to think about landscape architecture is that, architects are designing the buildings and landscape architects might be involved in designing everything between the buildings, whether
Mm,
it's, again, like a paved parking lot, a plaza, a roadway, a park, a garden. So, yeah, we work in a lot of different project types in a lot of different ways. And often we are collaborating with architects who are designing buildings and also civil engineers who are making sure everything works.
hmm
Um, and I would also say landscape architecture, you're doing a lot of design work, and more often than not, you're not really involved in construction or maintenance. Um,
hmm
you can do like design build, in which case you would be involved in that process, but really the landscaper is someone who has a specialty in construction and maintenance, and the landscape architect really specializes in design.
hmm So it's really about thinking about how you're going to use the space.
Exactly. I think
Okay.
landscape architecture is really about flow. It's really about people. I think the first
Mm,
thing people assume is that it's about plants, which it is, but um, it's about designing outdoor spaces for people, and that can take a lot of different forms. And
hmm
it's thinking about how people move through space, how people want to use space, providing areas for rest, areas for gathering, areas for play, and enhancing a sense of beauty regardless of the project type. Just because you're in maybe a paved urban environment doesn't mean it can't be beautiful. And then also start to integrate um, plants and habitat for other wildlife. So,
hmm
um, yeah.
Yeah. On your website, you talk about landscape architecture as a way to bolster native ecologies. And I was really curious about that. Like, as we're thinking about how humans use the space, what they need to use it for, there's also this whole element of, well, there's land and animals and plants that are also here. um, and that's a really important part of it. And, you know, they were probably there first. So I'm curious kind of to hear what you think about when you think about making these spaces in terms of native ecologies.
Right. I mean, it's always top of mind. I mean, it is a social, you are designing places for people, but I'm always thinking about, and I think most landscape architects are also always thinking about how you can design for other living things. Um, for one, I guess just circling back to like the story about how we met, I think all people love plants and animals, and that's why we have pets, or, and that's why we have houseplants. It's so deeply in us. And the things and spaces that we find beautiful integrate those elements. You know, Places that have trees are just we all think they're more beautiful. Places that have like a butterfly fluttering through, that just
hmm
evokes a sense of joy. So I feel like they're, you know, just totally intertwined, the two. Like you can't design a space for people without also designing a space for other living things. But,
Hmm.
I think that in the past has been something we've done not from an ecological perspective very well. Um, like creating a park and then it's just like invasive turf grass and trees and no other types of shrubs, no, maybe not even any native plants. So I kind of have a commitment in my projects to use native plants or very, very highly adapted plants exclusively. I really
Hmm.
refrain from using plants that won't add habitat value for native pollinators and native wildlife. And then
Hmm.
also thinking about like biodiversity.
Yeah.
I think that there are trends in landscape design where you're just doing a mass planting of one plant, which I think
Hmm.
can, have value. It certainly has like a visual impact. But if you have a larger site, thinking about how you can really bring biodiversity to that site and balance aesthetics with, um, yeah, that mission of biodiversity and
Right.
sustainability.
Kind of like a curated garden versus a wildflower garden or something with more variety that allows the ecosystem to flourish kind of the way that it is
Right,
with
right.
all of the bees and all the different kinds of pollinators and animals that yeah would normally be there. um why does this might seem like an obvious question, but why does you mentioned that thinking about this in your projects is important to you? I'm curious, why is that a meaningful aspect of landscape architecture to you?
Thinking about plants and animals
Yeah, like
and
bolstering
sustainability.
the native ecosystems and making that commitment to sustainability in your work. Like, how did that come to be an important thing to you?
Hmm. This is gonna sound like really hippy dippy, whatever, but I'm from New Mexico, so I guess I have like permission to do
You have
that.
a pretty bad.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up camping. That was, my family didn't have a lot of money growing up. And so the way that we vacationed was taking road trips to national parks all across the West and camping for weeks at a time. And, from a really early age, I remember um, like my mom, every time we left a campsite, saying, like, well, we need to leave the campsite better than when we better than how we found it. And that was just really woven into my psyche. Like, that is my job as a human is to leave the world better, a better place than when I arrived here. And you know, it's hard doing that when you're a human. There's a lot of consumption and distraction and all of that, but I do think, yeah, it's just doing what I can to support native pollinators that are under threat through habitat destruction, urban sprawl, and all of that. Even if it's just a small project, doing what I can to help plants and animals thrive. I don't know, it's like really deep. It's really, really
Yeah,
deep in me. And
yeah,
it's been there since I was a small kid.
yeah. And I
Um,
feel like I'm hearing you talk about sort of the relationship too of like humans as part of the ecosystem, that you had this sort of formative experience of just being outside.
right.
And I mean, I grew up camping too, um, in the Adirondacks, not in national parks, but that sounds amazing.
Really cool
And
too, though.
yeah, I've always associated kind of my truest, most reflective thoughtful, joyful self with literally like living outdoors.
Yeah,
Um, so
same.
yeah, and I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
And kind of where this deep love comes from.
Yeah, there's something really grounding about um getting out of the, I don't know, just the human context where your human problem feels so gigantic, and then you go outside and you're like, oh yeah, I'm part of this like infinite earth and this,
Yeah.
historic sort of life energy. Like this problem that I have is not significant. And then just feeling like camaraderie with other living things, like we're all sharing this
Hmm.
place. It's so soothing. And I think that that's also part of landscape architecture for me is giving people an opportunity to experience that, even if it's in a small way.
Right.
Um, you know,
What are
like
what are some of the ways that like that might be somehow implemented into a space, or like what are some of the ways you think about that?
um that's a great question. I mean, I guess
It might
the
be
big
hard to explain to
yeah, I
people who
think
aren't landscape architects, but I'm
that
curious, like what's happening in here?
yeah, well, I think that for one, it comes down to like not being elitist about project type. I think when you become like a designer, a landscape architect, there can be a lot of pressure, like, oh, well, if you're not working on a museum or
Mhm.
a university, then your work isn't important. It doesn't really
Mm.
matter as much. Because, those places are enjoyed by lots of people as compared to like a private residence or like I don't know, a median on I don't know, a residential street or something. But I think that every bit of beauty matters and every bit of reintroducing native plants to urban areas matters and every bit of, um, helping stormwater uh, repercolate into the earth. Like all of those projects, no matter how big or small, are all working toward that goal.
Mhm.
So I think that's one way that thinking kind of feeds into my design process is that I'm like, yeah, I think this small project is as important as this, or it also has importance. You know,
Right.
big project does, but the tiny projects do too. And then also
Yeah.
just trying to think of, how plants can uh, you know, maybe there's just a little magical moment in the design, like an unexpected plant pairing or an unexpected like paving detail or something. Just I try to create in my mind and hopefully in reality moments that give people pause.
Yeah.
Like,
So that so they
let's just
can
take
have
a
that
break.
feeling of connecting. Yeah.
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 Hmm. Like a moment of pause. How nice.
Well,
Yeah.
I think it also, I remember actually, it was a colleague of mine at Snowhetta. He gave this great talk on sustainability, and um, he led by saying, really the most sustainable projects are the projects that are loved by the people who use them. So, yes, sustainability is like, using green materials and having lots of plant life and all of that. Maybe like in the Southwest, having low water use. But in a way, none of that matters if the people who are going to use that space don't enjoy it, or they might need to like tear it out in 5 years because it's not
Mhm.
functioning properly. Um, or yeah, nobody's caring for it because it hasn't touched something in someone, you know. And so
Mhm.
sustainability, like sustainable projects are projects that people love. And yeah, creating moments that allow people to fall in love with this space, I think, is a really big
Yeah.
part of it.
Well, that's kind of another meaning of even the word sustainability, right? Is like maintaining something over time in balance.
Yes.
So, um, like I was talking with Emily Woodell from the Honest Consumer recently, and she was talking about how like, when people learn about how bad fast fashion is, they're like, "Oh my God, I have to throw out all my fast fashion clothes." But actually, the most sustainable thing is just wear them forever. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
wear them as long as you can if you already have them. Um, and yeah, so there is something to that where like if the place is built in like ways that are gentle to the earth with materials that are in balance with the earth, that's great. But we also want to use that space and make sure those things last for a really long time. Like that
Right.
is also part of the sustainability mission is like we don't want to be, you know, using lots of energy and materials and whatever to just like redo and redo and redo and have everything be new all the time and all of that.
Right. Well, and I think it's especially critical in landscape architecture because, it quickly it can be quickly erased if it isn't
Mm-hmm.
maintained. Nature takes over and does its thing. So you might have this well-composed landscape and like this highly curated planting palette that does evoke a lot of beauty for the people who use the space. But if people aren't motivated to maintain it, well, within a few years, that space is unrecognizable. That design is unrecognizable.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to make something that people care enough about to like have that commitment to maintain it over time.
Yeah. Well, that's also it's an interesting idea of like, is the goal that it has to stay the way that it is, or is there some relationship with what nature does over time in these spaces as well? Because
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that's what I mean. I think it depends. It depends on the project and the location. I mean, there are definitely like restoration, ecology projects, landscape projects, like the
Hmm.
Headwaters project I
Yeah.
helped work on um, here in Central Texas. That was designed to be a successional landscape. So, yes, like the first few years, you'll see
Mhm.
these plants, and in the years that follow, we're hoping these other plants establish. And, you know, it was definitely designed to be this evolving landscape experience. But then, like the Highline, which
Mm.
integrates lots of native plants, it's just such an incredible project. That's highly managed. Um, there are people who are weeding and seeding and doing all the things
Right.
to maintain that somewhat naturalistic look. Like it's still composed, it's
Right,
still
right.
designed, even if it's wild. And I think that a lot of projects in urban settings kind of are in that category. Um, you know, some are, in my opinion, the least sustainable landscapes have a lot of inputs where, oh, we're just planting annuals and ripping them out every season and
Yeah.
uh, you know, that there's not much sustainability to those projects. But, I think there's like this in-between project type where you do have, a biodiverse plant palette, but it is managed in some way.
Mm. Is it ever the case that the management is part of trying to keep a high amount of biodiversity or like regenerative goals for the project or things like that, where like in an urban environment, maybe this stuff would just all die or, turn into like all one invasive plant without that help? Like,
Yes,
is that can the sustainability be part of that?
absolutely. Yeah, I don't think just because it's maintained means uh that it's not in keeping with sustainability goals. I think you're exactly right. Like Bermuda grass is something that in this, I don't know if you have it in New York State. I definitely didn't see a lot of grass growing in New York City, so I don't know when I was living there. But like for instance though, Bermuda grass is this grass that everyone in the South has planted in their yards because it like is impossible to kill and is super drought tolerant, super freeze tolerant, but it is like the the devil grass. It will take over everything, you know?
Mm,
And it can't be killed. It's like the cockroach of the plant world. Um, so if that plant, you know, you have this beautiful biodiverse planted area and you had Bermuda grass that somehow launched itself into it. I mean, that that effort, that landscape moment that you would have um that everyone worked so hard to create would be totally overtaken by this invasive species. So yes, I think,
right.
you know, unfortunately, we've introduced all sorts of species that will take over in all sorts of different parts of the country. And yeah, management is about also making sure that those don't take root or that one
Mhm.
plant doesn't start to dominate. Yeah.
Right. I know this is such a complicated idea about like invasive versus native species, and even the terminology is kind of problematic. And,
Right.
just thinking about like who has the right to be where, but if a plant is destroying the biodiversity of an area and all the bees and birds are dying because it's just grass or whatever, like
Hmm.
these are, some of the questions that are just very hard to answer, like in conservation work as well, and all that kind of stuff. It's
Yeah.
it's interesting to think about sort of when we're trying to do the right thing, how much are we actually helping?
Yeah.
No,
I
yeah,
mean,
it's
all of these
complicated.
species that we're talking about, or, you know, we brought over to serve a purpose, or many of them, you know,
Right.
we thought we were doing something good, but it kind of backfired. Yeah.
Right. Or had just, additional outcomes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Wow. So how did you kind of pick landscape architecture as a field? Like, did you have an aha moment that all of these things that we've been talking about were so important to you, and this was the way that you were gonna kind of go out and implement, or like
Yeah.
slow growth?
Well, you know, it's not too much a meandering path that led me here, but I guess yeah, I was really into camping as a kid. Then I thought I was going to be a music major for a moment. Um,
Didn't we all?
and then after that, I just realized I need to plug in my computer. I'm so sorry, Julie.
That's okay. We're just here being real people, trying to
Yeah.
keep everything going. I think I had an alarm that sounded like ocean waves going for the first X number of minutes of our call. And you know what the alarm was? It was to remind me about our meeting. So,
That's amazing.
been there. Yeah.
Okay, I'm all ready now. Yeah, so yeah, I thought I was going to be a music major, and then I don't know. I mean, like I said, I'm from New Mexico, and going to college, I just started flipping through the catalog of courses, and I'm like, I don't even know what this stuff is. Like, what
Mm.
is philosophy, you know? Maybe I want to take a class on philosophy. You know, anyway, that kind of I rethought the music major pretty early on, but I didn't know what I wanted to study. And then I found this major called Natural History and Humanities. It doesn't exist any longer in the form that it existed, at least when I was a
Yes.
student.
Yes,
But
my interactive media degree is also
yeah,
sounds like an ancient practice at this point.
yeah. So, but I found this major and it was sort of like, oh my gosh, this is what I meant to study. It was kind of like, how do I describe it? I mean, heavy on natural sciences. So, we took a class on evolution and read all the theories about evolution leading up to Darwin. Um, took a lot of liberal arts seminars as well. Um, I guess everything sort of culminated in our what did we call it? It was a capstone experience. So we went on like a 10-day canoe trip in Montana, retracing the expedition of Lewis and Clark for a period. Yeah, it was like a 10-day trip, and there was a stretch of river we were following, and we read their journals. And then while we were on the river, we would also journal and sketch, and each of us had to learn about a different facet of the natural environment and then give a lecture on that. So, someone talked about geology one day, and then mine was native edible plants. And so, yeah, it was sort of like a journaling, camping, science, liberal arts degree. It was totally the coolest. And everybody kind of specialized in something in that degree, and I specialized in creative writing. I thought I wanted to be a nature writer. Um, I was really serious about, yeah, I thought I was going to be a poet, writer, and then I graduated and I started working for an art gallery in Santa Fe and realized that I wasn't writing anymore, but I was doing a lot of little doodles of garden ideas. And I'm like, gosh, I don't know what I want to do with my life. And then I read some blurb because I'm like, okay, I want to do something with nature, and but I don't know what it is. And it was something like, do you like being creative? Do you like working with people? Do you like, natural world, like landscape architecture? And I'm like, oh my God, it's me. Like, this is what I was meant to do.
Oh my gosh, one
And
of those ads actually worked.
yeah. Yeah, so that's kind of how I stumbled into it, and I had
Wow.
no idea what it was, even when I like applied to grad school, I didn't really know what landscape architecture was or what being a designer was. But I remember talking with the dean of the School of Architecture in New Mexico, and he said, well, you know, when you study design, your brain will be forever altered. Like you will
Hmm.
never be able to look at the world the same way. And I was like, wow, this
Were
guy's
you
being
like,
really
do I
dramatic.
want to sign up for that?
Yeah. But, he was right. It really does rewire your brain.
Wow. I, hmm. I never really thought of it that way because I guess I didn't have like a serious before and after to the things that I do. It just sort of, I mean,
Hmm.
talk about meandering. I've just sort of had like a flow, if you
Yeah.
will. Um, what are, what do you think that means? Like, what are some ways that you feel like you perceive the world differently or like create landscape architecture differently or experience being outdoors differently? Like, what does being a designer make you think about and see?
I think it I think it started to highlight for me that everything that exists is a decision somebody made. I think there was this level of like, oh, this is just the world we live in. Like, this is what roads look
Mm,
like, and this is what buildings look like, and this is what
right.
parks look like. But then realizing, like, oh no, it could look a
It
million
doesn't
different
have
ways.
to.
Yeah, we could
Yeah.
live on this planet in a completely different way. Like, we're just making decisions to live the way we're living, to build things the way that we build them. But, like, there are other ways of doing and thinking and inhabiting space. Um,
Do you have a vision of like if we lived in a different way? Like, in your mind, do you have a sort of different world that you're going
I'm like
toward, like
afraid to
using the
answer this
power of your
question.
imagination? Okay.
I mean, I think in my like dream world, we're like all wearing a one single robe. Maybe we have two in our closet, and we sleep on like hay mats with like, a bear skin over the top or something. Like in a cave, and I don't know. I mean, running water is really nice, so maybe we still have that. But
What is the cave part about? Just like being more outside?
being more outside and also like living in the earth, right, rather than extracting materials and building things on top of it,
Right. Right.
Just like how can
Yes.
we be on this planet in like a more symbiotic way,
Yeah.
Um,
Obviously, like sleeping on a bearskin in a cave is maybe not for everybody, but I love
yeah.
that like that thinking about how we can be more symbiotic with the earth is part of your work, even if it's like a university or a hotel or a park or a garden or even things that like we don't traditionally think of maybe as like part of nature
Yeah.
because like I feel like what I'm also learning from you is like even the things we create that are not natural, like of course are part of the earth.
Hmm.
So like whether we want to think of ourselves as separate or not, like we're not. Even if we're
Yeah.
not sleeping in a cave, like we are
Yeah.
sleeping on the earth, like we are walking on the earth, we're working on the earth, we're having relationships, like we're it's just like quite a physical fact that you're pointing out. It's interesting. I think like how little we think about it sometimes, like how you were talking about before when we're kind of like in our human zone with our human only problems.
Hmm.
Um, it's cool that considering that is like part of your job, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, I mean, it's funny that it's not like you could look at any of my projects and be like, wow, this girl's like,
Sleeping in a
hardcore,
cave.
whatever. Yeah. But it's in there, like
Yeah,
even I would say like the decisions to use or not use certain materials, like I try not to use artificial turf, for instance. Like I think that is a really bad for the planet and really bad for people even. Um,
hmm,
Even though I understand it does have a role in specific situations, I'm not going to say that no one should use it, even though,
no
maybe no
one
one
should
should
use it.
use it.
I'll
But,
say
there are like
it.
specific, like maybe a rooftop, yeah, in a city or something, and there's no irrigation or whatever. Like maybe it's an appropriate material there, but um, yeah, I really try to advocate for materials, and that includes like plant materials and like paving materials, hardscape materials that are more earth friendly, Um, and I'm actually really interested. I haven't taken my business this direction yet, but I like really would like to explore maybe like more of a deliberate sustainability mission in the work. I just attended a webinar a couple of weeks ago that was about decarbonizing landscapes. So thinking about like, okay, you know, using materials that are already on site. Like if you have a concrete sidewalk, like can you repurpose that material for your, your new design? If you have boulders on site, if you have, felled trees on site, like maybe you can start to use the materials you already have on site. So you're not extracting new material from the earth, you're not transporting material
Mhm.
across state lines, you're really working with what you have. It really resonated with me. And, I think there it can be complicated because the materials you have on site, if you have them, may not perform the functions you need them to, or they may not have the aesthetic qualities that,
Right.
the client needs. So,
Or if you're trying to move towards something that can like self-irrigate and be more green on the long term, like
yeah,
concrete's probably not your thing.
right,
So,
right.
yeah.
But
Well, I mean, I think you're also bringing your kind of like artistic creativity to these things in terms of thinking about how can we reuse stuff even visually or like give it to someone who could use it or like I feel like maybe that's part of the design thinking will change you forever
yeah,
bit, but like as artists, like part of our job often is to kind of think about like what's another way we could do this or what can we do with what we have or like what just kind of thinking about those questions of like in sustainability that can also be very tricky to know like would using would I'm just making this up, this is
oh
maybe not a
yeah,
thing,
go
but
for
like
it.
would chopping up the sidewalk into gravel take more energy than like removing it and bringing in porous stones that would help us with our rain garden or whatever.
Right, right.
So like yeah, a lot of the things are like these questions of like how do you weigh and balance this stuff. Are there like conversations happening around this in the landscape architecture space? Like, is there information and tools for deciding these kinds of things?
Yes, yes, there is. And, I wish I had them all at my fingertips. I'll have to like email you a list. But there are
Yeah.
definitely a friend of mine in New York just put together some sort of new app database where people can source
Oh,
reclaimed
wow.
materials. I know that, there are people in Denmark and the Netherlands, organizations that are coming up with ways to do more cradle to cradle material sourcing.
Can you
And
tell us
use.
what cradle to cradle means?
Oh, yeah, I don't know exactly why they I should know. Basically, like the material is reused over and over and over and over and over again. Like it's a circle and there's no like end point. So,
It is
um
constantly rebirthed in the earth's cradle. I don't know.
yes. Yeah, there we go.
I'm just
But
spreading rumors. I don't know what I'm talking
yeah,
about.
everyone should fact check this. Yeah, no,
Yes.
the like I remember listening to a talk and it was, gosh, I wish I could remember who it was by, but I think they were a group of Danes who had started to incentivize fishermen bringing nets back to shore, and then they would melt the fishing nets down to like a plastic that could then be used in a chair. And then when the chair is no longer something that somebody wants to use, that component can be, onward and onward and
Right.
onward, like melted down to make this other thing. Um, yeah, and then there was like a group of people who had like come up with a system for rating, like creating sort of these modular columns for new buildings, and they all had a QR code or something on them. And so when the building is then demolished in the future, they can scan the code and it'll tell you like what the structural ratings are for that column and so that it can
Right.
be repurposed in different ways. There are people all around the world working on this, which is really exciting. And I'm glad
Yeah,
we're
that's so
talking about it because
inspiring.
it's easy to get down in the world right now. But people are
Yeah,
working on really cool things
yes.
to make it
Well,
better.
that's part of the point of why I like doing these interviews and why I want to do them and why I want to share them because actually there are people doing amazing things and it's worth hearing about it and being reminded about it. And then, yeah, you already are mentioning all these other people who are doing amazing things too. So, like, all it took was me saying, hey, I want to hear about the amazing things Meredith is doing. And now we just got like, 10 times the inspiration. So,
Uh, Julia,
yeah.
you're amazing. I just have to say, thank you for doing the good work in the world that you are doing in so
Well,
many different
thank
ways.
you. I mean, going back to what you said earlier about it might seem small, but it makes a difference. And you feel that, however you can incorporate sustainability into your work, that's important. Like, obviously, I really resonate with that. However we can incorporate these things into our lives, that's certainly better than not doing it.
Yeah.
So, do you have any kind of final tips for people if they're trying to incorporate sustainability into their
Mm.
yard, their houseplants, their whatever space they might have, like on a smaller scale. Obviously, you have tools and materials at your fingertips that we might
Yeah.
not, but maybe there are some things that, you know, apply to all different kinds of situations.
Yeah. Let's see here. I mean, I think that one thing, if people are interested in supporting their native pollinators, making sure that you're using a plant that is in fact native to your area. Cultivars, if does everyone know what a cultivar is? I don't
Let,
know.
let's say what they are just in case.
Yeah, well, there are like native, I don't know, native sages, let's say. Like, okay, and in the wild it grows a white color or something. But then we can do these genetic, through genetics uh, selection and all of that, we can create like a red blooming variety of this plant. And maybe we make the blooms even like twice as large or three times as large as like the native wild version. Well, the pollinators may not recognize that as a food source. So even though it's technically the same species, because it's been altered in such a dramatic way, it may not serve the same the same purpose that
Yeah.
your pure species would. So I would say like be mindful of that in picking plants. And if you have nurseries in your area that specialize in native plants, like go talk to those folks and see what they
Hmm.
recommend. Like the people who work at nurseries are incredibly knowledgeable and I ask questions all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, even though I know a lot about plants, I'm still learning, like, well, how does this plant,
There's
which
so
I've seen in
much.
pictures, how does that behave in planted under another tree or in full sun or, over the course of 10 years? Like, I don't have all of that knowledge. I aspire to, but,
Yeah. Well, the
nursery.
hive mind, you know,
Yeah,
that's kind of the value of community and each person knowing different things and yeah,
exactly.
supporting local businesses when you're doing your setting up your spaces, like that's all good stuff.
Well, and
Um,
there's some online
yeah.
tools too, just the Ladybird Johnson Wildflower Center, which is based here in Central Texas. They have a plant database that for the entire country. You can go to
Wow.
your state and find what plants are native to your state. It's not as localized. I still think there's value in talking to your local nurseries.
Yeah.
Um, because they might say, oh, this plant is native to your state, but it's native to like the north and not the south. But in
Right.
any case, it
Right.
kind of starts to limit your plant palette and tell you about the
Helps you
native
narrow it
plant.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah. because I feel like sometimes when it's like, okay, go research, like it can be kind of overwhelming. So yeah,
Mhm.
whatever resources like we can share in terms of this is a good one, this one is well sorted, like I'll try and dump some of those things in the captions, comments, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Um, and like in my link tree on my Instagram, I have a link to find your local extension office, which is
Mm.
also like a really good resource for all different kinds of things, but I think maybe this included. So yeah, I can put that too.
Cool.
Well, I feel like I could talk to you for 17 more hours about this. I mean, I had so many more questions. I'm just fascinated and I'm loving our conversation, but I know like we should probably wrap
Oh.
up. So I want to ask you some just sort of like fun favorites kind of
Yeah.
questions. Do you have a favorite project you've worked on and why?
Ooh.
Ideally, one that had sustainable elements, obviously, for our purposes.
Yeah, I would say the Headwaters project in New Braunfels was really the coolest, and it was cool on a lot of levels. One, do you have a few minutes? Do I have a few minutes to talk about the project?
Totally. I
Yeah,
just wanted to,
yeah,
stick to my commitments, but yeah, we
yeah.
can keep talking.
Yeah, it was a piece of land that was just a parking lot with some industrial buildings on it, owned by the water utility of New Braunfels. And they said, we want to do something cool with this site. We want to make this a place for our community. And so they hired a great team of architects, designers, engineers. Um, and we reconceptualized the project as like a public park. And the architect made use of the old industrial buildings and used that as a platform for new buildings. We tore out all of the paving, created new landforms to help manage water. The project is right on the Comal River, and it actually it, it it's the home of the headwaters to the Comal River, the spring. And the spring has been used for thousands and thousands of years by human inhabitants. And there were archaeological finds on the site. And
Wow.
um, yeah, it was very cool to one, have a client that was so interested in doing something really sustainable and really good for the community. Like we would throw out all sorts of ideas like, well, what if we reclaimed like wastewater? And they're like, yes, let's do it. Like, what if we reused concrete? Yeah, we want to do that too. They were just so
Amazing.
open-minded and so wanting to do like good design and good work for the earth. And then, all the whole team kind of had that same ethos, but to work on a site that was going to be so meaningful to the community and be opened up to the community, that it was going to be a project that was so infused with native plants and was kind of more leaning toward like a successional landscape typology, and that also it was a place that had been used for people for thousands of years and had endangered species in the springs. It was just like touching on all the things that
Yeah.
make a project feel really important and beautiful. And the people I was working with, because I was uh, working with Ten Eyck Landscape Architects, it was their project. I mean, the people I was working with were just so knowledgeable and committed
Mm.
to doing good, and I learned a lot from working on that project. It was really
Yeah.
fun.
That just like brightened my week. And also
Yay.
I feel like that points to like the there's so many roles in that, you know? And like when we're thinking about, oh, well, what can I possibly do? Like just you pointing out that people wanting to collaborate on these things or being open to these things or you know, like having an opening to even work on this together, that was a big part of allowing it to happen.
Oh, 1,000%. Really, a project is only as good as the client wants it to be, you know? Like you can do a lot
You
as a
could say that
designer,
again.
you know? Yeah.
Uh, yeah. Well, it's very inspiring to know that those things are happening and that is out there. Do you have a favorite plant or landscape element that you find yourself coming back to often, and why, if so?
You know, there are plants that I love that I just think are so sweet and beautiful and bring me joy. But the plants that I'm coming back to over and over again are the ones that are surviving our extreme climate shifts.
Mm.
We are seeing a lot of extreme weather in Central Texas. Like we
I bet.
had snow this week, which I've been here for, 15 years, and only in the last few years have I seen snow. And like hard freezes. But then we also had an 88-degree day, like January 2nd or something like that. So, you know, there
Wow.
there were plants that we were able to use when I first started working here that we can't use anymore because the climate has changed so much. So yeah, I'm like, okay, what plants are gonna like survive everything? Those are my guys. Like, I don't want to have fussy plants that people have to cover that aren't going to make it through these extreme weather fluctuations. So, beauty is important, but I think resilience is kind
Mhm.
of trumps everything for me right now.
Yeah. Are there enough of those kind of survivalist plants to contribute to biodiversity, or is that also becoming a problem of like, well, we can only use these three because everybody else dies?
Yeah. I think there are enough, but certainly it is limiting the palette. I mean, I guess as some plants come offline, we're probably able to use plants that we weren't able to use before.
Right, it's just like
I
a
think,
shifting
yeah,
who matches.
right,
Yeah.
right. So, yeah, I don't know. I love my Texas sage here in Central Texas is like it's like the most resilient plant there is. So
And is that, excuse my ignorance, the same as like in the same family as sage the herb?
no, it's
No.
actually like not named accurately, which is why looking at the scientific name for your plants is really important.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, it's actually all of the true sages are in the salvia family. And then the Texas sage, its scientific name is Leucophyllum frutescens. Yeah, so it's
Way to
different.
pull that
It's
out
an
of nowhere.
yeah, I
I'm,
know.
I'm impressed that you know that. Yeah. Well, thinking about the kind of, how things are shifting and all of that, I was going to ask you if you have a favorite season,
Mm. Ooh, well, it depends on where I am. In
right?
New York, my favorite season is the fall, and in Texas, my favorite season is spring.
Are they similar in character in the different places? Like, do you like similar things about them, or it's just kind of two separate favorites?
Mm, two separate favorites. Well, and in New Mexico, I like summer. I'll just throw that out there. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you know what autumn in New York is like. It's
Yeah.
just so cozy and the weather's perfect and things start to take on like a new glow. In, I would say in Texas, I feel spring is the best because it's not too hot yet, but it's still really warm and sunny and beautiful and like everything's blooming.
Mm,
In Austin, things are like an electric green in April. And I
yeah.
just love that. Like you just feel life like surging forward. It's so energizing.
Yeah. Yeah. I love spring for that reason too. It's like Oh yeah. We can we can grow and do new things. There's always a chance to like be bright again.
Yeah, yeah.
Um what are you reading or listening to right now?
Oh boy. Um, Nothing. If I'm being perfectly honest, yeah. I have my 16-month-old, so
Yeah,
there's like no media consumption really. There,
you
but
are
there,
listening to his voice.
I'm listening to his voice, and we are spending a lot of time outside. So that's
Mm.
like how I'm spending
You're
my
listening to
day.
the wind and the birds and
Exactly.
whoever else is out there.
Yeah, we have coyotes and
Oh my
deer, and
goodness.
yeah, we're like in a little
Wow.
wild land right now. So,
Ugh, I love those vibes. Do you have advice that you would give to your future or past self?
whoa. Mm, that is a really good question and a really hard one to answer.
We can always
Um,
add that to our text area if you want to think about it.
yeah, I think I would just tell my past self it's all gonna work out. You don't need to worry so much.
That is a
Yeah.
nice thing to hear in in the current era of crisis. I don't even know what to say. Um, well, I have so appreciated hearing all about your work and the way you think and all the things you're trying to do in the world. Where can people find you, learn more, connect, follow what you're doing?
Yeah, I thank you, Julia, for having me today.
Yeah, pleasure.
Yeah, if people want to get in touch, I guess my website is the best route. So that's therangecreative.com.
Amazing. Are you on Instagram or other things, or you're just keeping
I
it tight on the website?
I technically have an Instagram, but in protest of like,
Yes,
well, I'm trying to maintain a level of optimism. So I am no longer really active on any social media platforms.
that sounds very refreshing. There's been discussion in past interviews about like how each person has to find the balance of maintaining what optimism you're going toward and what that means in terms of input and output and like yeah, if it's not helping you actually take good into the world,
Yeah.
then what is it doing? You
Yeah,
know?
I mean, I'm certainly not sticking my head in the sand, but it's like, okay, I'm gonna read headlines for 5 minutes and then I need to not do that anymore.
Right,
I need to be present. I need to be
right.
present in my life and think of ways that I can, yeah,
Yeah. You're
contribute
being
good.
present in your work and your community and thinking about these things.
Yeah.
Yeah, there I think there's a big difference between uh awareness and like bombardment or
Yes.
paralysis, you know.
Yeah,
So it makes sense to me what
exactly.
you're saying.
Well, and
Yeah.
I think also it just becomes easy to fixate on problems that are beyond your
Hmm.
realm, and you lose sight of things you actually can change, which are
Right.
way more local. Like, okay, I can change, like, I can participate in something in my community, in my neighborhood. I want to have awareness of the context in which we're all living. But I also don't want to, yeah, be paralyzed by
Hmm.
the problems at large that we're all facing. Like maintaining a level of optimism to take action in a local way, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like a very conscious decision, which really helps with like our purpose and spending our time on the things that we're trying to spend time on.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it's tough, but
Yes. I was
yeah.
gonna say, even without optimism, like I've seen a lot of people talking about, you know, even if we don't feel hopeful or we don't feel optimistic, we can still think about what we can actually do.
Hmm.
And so I'm seeing a lot of things about people who are like, you know, forget the philosophy. I'm just sort of moving forward and actually being in action and being in community and doing these things. It gives you the resilience to keep doing them in a weird
Hmm.
way. Like I saw a video about this the other day that I'll have to dig up and also put it in
Oh,
the
I would love
comments.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, someone was being interviewed like on PBS or something, and she was talking about this. So right on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
just,
thank
I
you.
take such comfort knowing that, you know, we're not alone.
Yeah.
There are so many do-gooders on the planet, and we're not
Yep.
going anywhere. So,
Like Mr. Rogers said, look to the helpers.
yeah, exactly.
That has just become so relevant. It's like, I know this was for 3-year-olds, but actually, Mr. Rogers really kind of knew what he was talking about.
Oh my, big time. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, on that hopeful note, I just want to thank you for taking the time to do this. It was such a pleasure, and just, yeah, I hope people will look you up and get inspired. Thank you so
Oh, thanks,
much.
Julia. Thank you.
Yeah.
Have a great day.